Imagine the anguish of families waiting, desperately hoping for news of their loved ones. Today, that hope is mixed with sorrow as Israel receives 2 bodies from Gaza, which Hamas claims are the remains of hostages. This development, confirmed by the Israeli Prime Minister's office, adds another layer of complexity to an already fraught situation. The remains were transferred to Israeli forces via the Red Cross, and authorities are now working to formally identify them. Hamas had earlier announced the recovery of these bodies within Palestinian territory on Saturday. This brings the total number of deceased hostages returned to Israel to 12 out of an initial 28. But here's where it gets controversial. The delay in returning all remains has sparked outrage in Israel. A key condition of last week's ceasefire agreement was the complete release of all hostages, both living and deceased, from Gaza. Hamas, however, maintains that locating the remaining bodies has been incredibly difficult due to the extensive rubble. This leads to a critical question. Is Hamas truly doing everything it can, or are there other factors at play? What are your thoughts on this? Adding to the tension, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has ordered the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt to remain closed until further notice. Its reopening, they state, hinges on the return of all remaining hostage remains and the full implementation of the ceasefire agreement. This decision has significant implications, as the Rafah crossing is a lifeline for Palestinians needing medical assistance and for thousands seeking to return home. The IDF has emphasized that Hamas must uphold the agreement and take the necessary steps to return all the hostages. And this is the part most people miss. While the situation is undeniably delicate, the US has downplayed suggestions that the delay constitutes a breach of the ceasefire deal. Former President Donald Trump even hailed the agreement as a major victory during his recent visit to Israel and Egypt. However, the full text of the deal remains unpublished, though a leaked version circulating in Israeli media acknowledges the possibility that not all bodies might be immediately accessible. It's a crucial detail that adds nuance to the situation. Hamas, for its part, blames Israel for complicating the search efforts. They argue that Israeli airstrikes have reduced much of Gaza to rubble, and that Israel's restrictions on allowing heavy machinery and diggers into the territory hinder their ability to recover the bodies. UN humanitarian chief Tom Fletcher described the Gaza Strip to the BBC News channel as a wasteland, with people desperately searching through the debris for bodies and attempting to locate their flattened homes. This paints a devastating picture of the challenges on the ground. As part of the US-brokered ceasefire, Hamas also released all 20 living hostages to Israel. Prior to this, Israel's military confirmed the identity of the 10th deceased hostage returned by Hamas, Eliyahu Margalit, whose body was taken from Nir Oz kibbutz after he was killed on October 7, 2023. In exchange for the hostages, Israel released 250 Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails and 1,718 detainees from Gaza. Furthermore, Israel handed over the bodies of 15 Palestinians to officials in Gaza via the Red Cross, bringing the total number of bodies received to 135. This exchange highlights the complexities and the high stakes involved in this conflict. Separately, on Saturday, tragedy struck when 11 members of a Palestinian family were reportedly killed by an Israeli tank shell, according to the Hamas-run Civil Defense Ministry. This marks the deadliest single incident involving Israeli soldiers in Gaza since the ceasefire began. The Israeli military claims its soldiers fired at a suspicious vehicle that had crossed the so-called yellow line demarcating the area still occupied by Israeli forces in Gaza. However, the absence of physical markers for this line and uncertainty about whether the vehicle actually crossed it raise serious questions. The BBC has requested the IDF to provide the coordinates of the incident. This incident underscores the fragility of the ceasefire and the potential for further escalation. The Israeli military launched its campaign in Gaza in response to the October 7, 2023 attack, in which Hamas-led gunmen killed approximately 1,200 people in southern Israel and took 251 others hostage. Since then, at least 68,000 people have been killed by Israeli attacks in Gaza, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, whose figures are generally considered reliable by the UN. In September, a UN Commission of Inquiry accused Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Israel vehemently rejected the report, calling it distorted and false. This accusation highlights the deeply polarized views surrounding the conflict and the challenges of achieving lasting peace. What do you make of the US's downplaying of the delay in returning all bodies? Is it a pragmatic approach to maintain stability, or does it overlook the pain of the families involved? And considering the UN Commission's accusation, how do you see the future of this conflict and the possibility of reconciliation? Share your perspective in the comments below.